Welcome, everybody. I'm sure people are going to jump in throughout the next 15 minutes, but we want to kind of cover a bunch of things. I'll have Ray start out with the first slide here, but I'm Bob Farrell. I was the previous vice president of the Brighton Chamber. I'm also still on the board. Ray's my son. We run an ad agency here in Rochester, pretty much specializing in social media now. So I've done everything from film to video to jingles to the whole 9 yards. But really social media is what's really kicking off now for clients. And we're lucky through this pandemic to actually have clients that are making money. So it's mostly all from social media. So that's pretty cool that they're still in business and they're still making money. And then Ray, if you want to introduce yourself at all.
Yeah, so I'm Ray, and of course I'm Bob's son, and we've been working together for a couple years now, and we've been doing a lot of websites, social media accounts, and also videos. So videos is a huge thing, and that's what we want to talk about today. I wanted to let everybody know that's here at the moment. If you're on the call, there's a Q&A section. So you might have to click your screen or move your cursor around, and you'll see a Q&A at the bottom right. You can click that and you can ask a question during the presentation today. So keep that in mind. We'll try to answer it as we go along or at the end. And then we'll also try to bring up stories as we're going through the slides and things you may be thinking. So, but again, if we miss something, feel free to bring that up. And so I'm going to share my slides during the presentation. And what's going to happen is we're both going to be talking. So my dad and I are both going to be talking, so you don't only have to hear one of our voices. So let's get started here. 1 second. Okay, so we're just starting up the slideshow here. So we're going to talk to you today about how to make a simple social media video and on a budget as well, as I know that's always a huge concern for people. And we wanted to also add how to make a social media impact. We'll just talk about that a little bit today because we know videos kind of work with social media basically a lot of the time now. You can always do a video on your website or on TV as well, but social media is a huge focus.
And anything we don't cover today, you could definitely email us or just contact us after this, and we'll be happy to answer any questions about shooting, editing, all kinds of things, and how to post social media for yourself. And we also want to thank Brighton, the Brighton Chamber, for allowing us to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is high level. It's a brief overview. So again, any in-depth questions, we're free to answer anybody's questions at a later time. And if you have something about the presentation or about a simple video, feel free to ask it now. So let's go on here. All right, so the first slide we have here is.
Well, we do have a couple of questions, Ray. It says, are we muted and no video? And that's correct. You can ask questions, but the way it's set up for this through the Brighton Chamber, you can ask questions and we'll answer them, but you can only type them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and again, you can always give us a call or send us an email at a later time as well. So the first slide here we have is always think creatively, which is always a huge focus for our team, and key into what you want to communicate and how often. So this first slide is really going about thinking about the first step. I know I want to make a video. I think it will be exciting. It will help my brand. Where do I start? What am I trying to do? So that's why you really need to focus on what you want to communicate. And then these are just a few options or a few things to think about when you're trying to make a video. Are you trying to introduce yourself? Do not a lot of people in Rochester or the area that you're in know you? Are you trying to introduce your brand, make people feel that emotional connection to you, that you're people, and you know, and that you're not just a company without a voice or a life to you and your brand? And that's really what video is really trying to do, is trying to connect you to people and bring out that side of you.
Yeah, Ray, I just want to interject here. The Mattress to Go logo that we have there, this was because of the pandemic. All their mattresses are sealed in plastic, and they were still open at their warehouse where They had curbside service that they'll, put it on your car for you. You don't even have to get out. But we developed the logo. We developed that whole extension of their brand that was more keen into what was going on currently, and then how we were going to help them. And Sleep Cheap's actually been doing pretty well through this whole pandemic. So we're pretty excited about that. But when you're trying to set up these things, you want to make sure you have an offer and a sale. You want to make sure that if there are seasonal things coming up or recent changes, that's a really good thing to use also in the communications. Any new service that's coming up. So those are all exciting things. You want to always keep your content fresh and out there, and also engaging, because if it's boring, people won't even look at it. So you got to have some kind of engagement with it.
Yeah, and then the last point is just also having you think about, do I need the really high quality thing that I'm going to show for years on my website where you can just keep using, or is this going to be a monthly approach, which we try to do a lot with clients, where you're trying to have exciting content that changes all the time. Doesn't mean you don't want to care about your look in the monthly approach. It just means you might be thinking about it a little differently. Maybe the length of the video is different because you're doing it every month. Maybe the content's different. You can change it up more. Where if you're going to put on your website for years, you really want to have a quality look that people feel good about and you feel good about, because you and your employees are going to have to see that for a long time. So
Yeah, as far as posting, typically what we're doing with our clients now is posting 2 or 3 times a week. You don't want to really be on too often on Facebook or Instagram, those types of things, because then it just becomes too much for people because they're seeing you too much. So it's actually oversaturating the market, and then you actually start turning people off if they're seeing post all the time. Also, don't forget about Craigslist. If you're selling, like for Sleep Cheap, and for e-cars, we're actually on Craigslist. And also, what was the other one? The Facebook Marketplace. Don't forget those things too if you're trying to sell products, because people do go there today, and they look up things. So we post things in a lot of different areas. Next slide.
and then we have equipment here. Of course, the first thing you got to think about is, what do I want to communicate? What kind of video am I trying to put out to the world? And then how do I actually do it? So the first thing, or one of the first things you got to think about is, do I even have the equipment to have a look that I want? Of course, camera is a huge part of taking a video. So we're just giving you a couple quick options there. You can always do a high-end camera, or a camera where somebody would show up with maybe a crew, and it would be a really expensive, nice production. Or you can do it all the way down to using a camera phone these days. Now, a camera phone might have a negative or cheap connotation to it, but if you have the right app these days and a nice phone, it's amazing what you can do with manual options, where you can change shutter speed. Um, you can have the white balance locked. You can do different things with focus. You can have the bit rates really high. So it can really look like a quality video, and not like someone just shot it quickly on their phone, even though they did end up shooting it on their phone. They just had nice stuff. I mean, there's been movies made, there's been big time directors have used phones. So it's amazing what you can do. It's just, if you just use the camera app out of the normal one on the phone, you're very limited.
Yeah, Ray just got the iPhone 11, so it's got 3 different lenses on it. So, and it takes really, really nice video. Just to give you some background, I was at a production house when the first digital camera was bought in Rochester, and it was $120,000. That's the price of a house. It was just amazing. And within about 3 or 4 years, it was already obsolete. Cameras could do more at 25,000. Now you can get a camera for a really nice video camera from anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 that does even more than that $120,000 camera. So things have really, really changed in the marketplace as far as shooting. But again, phones, if you're looking for that fast, quick shot, as lighting's key. So as long as you light it well, you can actually get some pretty nice images just off your phone.
And then we got a Q&A. Dad, can you see the questions there? It's easier if you do it because I'm doing the slideshow.
Okay, are there locations in Rochester such as yours that someone can go Two, for a highlighted video, most cell phones have the quality, but not the taking. Um, there's quite a few production houses in Rochester. There's professional ones. They're going to be a lot more expensive. And then there's a lot of people that used to be like videographers at Channel 10, or I used to actually be one of the managers at Channel 8 and Fox. There's people that have left the stations. They're out on their own, and they're, because they have their own equipment, they're pretty well priced, but they can do editing and shooting. We have all our own equipment too. So, you know, there are people out there that you can turn to on that. And then the next question from Beth is, what is a good app to use with your iPhone to change the camera settings? And maybe Ray can touch on that.
Oh yeah, Filmic Pro is a great app. It's not free, but it's very inexpensive considering what you can get out of it. Filmic Pro, we can always talk about that at a later time. I could send out information to whoever asks us. You can always email us too. But yeah, that's a great app. There's so many options on there. It's amazing what you can do with it. And I think that's what a lot of people would suggest as well. Lighting kit. So of course, camera and then lighting. So what we suggest is you should at least have a way to do a key light, which is basically your main light on the subject. A lot of times we're
Comes from
shooting.
the side.
Yep, and we're shooting usually subjects are usually one person or a couple people in a shot. So you want to have your main light or your key light, which is going to be the light coming from the side. It could be the stronger light in the shot. And then you also, we would suggest having at least an option to do fill light. So, which is trying to fill in the shadows or trying to have a little bit more dynamic or dramatic look to the shot.
Yeah, we wanted to point out, you can go out and buy professional lights, which actually you can adjust the intensity on them. You can also change them from a white to kind of a gold glow, depending on what kind of, and it'll automatically mix as you're moving the knob on it. You can also use regular incandescent lights. Now, you can't adjust the intensity of them, but I've learned from years of being in this industry, if you move the light back further and further away from you, the intensity goes down. So that's really what they even do in professional shots. They'll just move the light backwards. And if it's too bright on the face, just move it away 5 or 10 feet. And then all of a sudden it'll be the right intensity for you. And then moving on to sound, Ray can touch on that too, because we just got some new microphones for that.
Yeah, so there's, of course, you can use the microphones that come with the equipment you have. Let's say you're shooting on your phone. You can, again, with an app with manual options, you can actually pick which microphone on the phone you want it to record on. Let's say you're shooting with the nice camera on the back, you can actually pick the back microphone to record on. And typically, like, let's say an iPhone, for example, records pretty good these days. Now, there's other apps that are made more for sound or better quality sound. There's equipment that you can buy that connects to the phone or, you know, whatever film camera you have. There, you can always upgrade your sound equipment. Now, we just say that the typical thing that we have realized, of course, and the thing about microphones is if it's closer to the person, that's going to be more powerful, right? So let's say you have an okay microphone or you're shooting someone from, 10 feet away or more. There's only so much power to the voice or so much of that sound that you really want to cut through everything that you're going to get if you're not right next to someone. So that's why there's mics that go right on people. There's mics that you hang down. There's mics that you just have right off camera, but as close as possible. So a lot of times we're trying to get the microphone close to people.
Yeah, you have to be aware of all the sound too. When we were shooting outdoors for Brent at Outdoor Lighting, we totally forgot about how, because we were way out in the beautiful mansion, but it was in the woods, and the sounds of the crickets at dusk were so loud. We totally forgot about that part. So we had to do a lot of readjusting in the editing so that his voice was coming through really clean. But you got to always be aware of, truck noises going by, planes going over. There's all different types of sound that, or even just your heater or air conditioning kicking on will actually pick up on the voice and on the microphone. So, but we do have a question from Jacqueline. So let's go back to lighting. How about the light circles that seem a lot of people use when on Zoom? They are popular today. I have a niece that actually sells clothes online, and the thing I don't like about them is it puts a circle, which we're not used to seeing, as a reflection in your eye, which I think people are used to regular lights. The reflection on the eyeball, they're used to just seeing a little white speck on one side or the other. With the circular things, it works. But that's the difference between flat lighting, where you're just trying, and we'll touch on that coming up here. But flat lighting, just everything's flat. The whole image, your whole face is the same intensity. Key light, fill light, and backlight, which is some of the things that we'll touch on later. The key light is going to come in on one side of your face. The fill light's less intensity, but it fills in the shadows on the other side, and it makes you more 3D and pops you better. And then if you have a light in the back that's hitting the top of your head and also just barely on your shoulders, it actually helps you again pop out from the background. But we can move on to the next slide, Ray.
Yeah. And again, like there's different lighting options for different situations. If you're sitting at your desk or you're doing a YouTube video or a vlog, that one strong light that just covers in all the shadows on your face can do the job. And a lot of people have simple lighting setups like that. And you can always guard against reflections and things like that. So that can work for certain things. Okay. And then of course, cost versus effective. This is of course a huge part of this. How do you get the right personnel, or what do I actually need to do this? So we consider for this presentation break-in, of course, there's multiple layers or value you can go up here, but we're just trying to keep it simple based on the topic, on a budget or a super tight budget. So they're both about trying to keep it down on price. And the on a budget approach is what we work on a lot with people, I feel like, is the small team that's doing multiple roles. So you got people writing the script, people that are doing directing, cinematography on set, they're doing editing, you know, you're coaching people through the scene or the moment that you're shooting. So you have a very small team these days can get by with, as long as they know how to do multiple roles. And then the super tight budget option, of course, is to shoot it yourself. And we're not saying that can't work. Of course it can. You can still deliver a message about your brand. We just suggest always make sure you light it well. If you're trying to have power to the ad, also make sure you're editing it well. Of course, you don't have to do those things. You could just record a simple video, make it look pretty good, and you have a message there. But we just think there's also just different levels of power based on the time you're going to put in. And as long as you can cover those things like lighting and editing, then it can work great for you.
Yeah, just wanted to fill in. I've worked on everything from $600 video productions all the way up to over 100,000. And you say, how can, well, 100,000 was 23 markets of a client that had stores in 23 markets. And so you have to pay the rights for the music and the talent for all those markets too. And that's why it starts getting expensive. But also you have a large crew, and big crews are great because you have somebody who's concentrated on makeup, somebody else is concentrated on lighting, which is called a gaffer. You got grips that are running and moving lights and equipment around. You got your cinematographer, you got your director. So, and that's what really adds, you got a lot of brains out there working on one project with lots of suggestions. And that's why it really gives you a nice look when you get done with it. And plus they're more polished, so they know how it's going to work in the editing room. So they know when they're shooting, it's going to edit really, really well together for the editor. So that just gives you some feedback on that too. But you can also do the Blair Witch project showed that you can shoot even a movie fairly inexpensive. I think it was $30,000 they did for that and made millions. It's just it depends on the creative and your approach to everything, and that's the fun part of it. But we'll move on to the next.
And again, I think a big focus is how much time you're willing to spend on it. I think you can shoot something really simply, but you're probably going to have to take time unless you just have an incredible concept to make it really have power to the audience. Okay, and next slide, we're going to go. So we just want to go a little bit more, and we already talked about this a little bit, but we just had an example here, and we just want to talk a little bit more about the lighting, but we did go over this. So the key light or the main light, we suggest at least having that a nice light
Yes.
that you can adjust the brightness and temperature. LED lights are so efficient, so convenient these days. And again, just having that brightness and temperature control on the light, it feels like you have tons of power out there, you know, like that you can just adjust the moment to what you need. So it's really, really nice. And again, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on these things. That's the amazing thing today.
Just so you know, this isn't Photoshop corrected. This was demonstrating about just flat lighting, horrible lighting to start out with, just overdone. And then with the changing the apps on your phone, white balancing it with your phone, which is a whole nother thing that you'll learn, or you can at least watch a YouTube on that. Brings the color back in, moving lights around. He turned down the intensity in the background on those lights because he was able to adjust those lights, believe it or not, in the background, so he could turn them down. And then it makes a much, you don't have to be this dramatic when you're lighting, but it shows the key light on the one side of his face. Without the fill light that you have on the other side, it would just be black. It would just be like totally fall off. So you have to have that counterbalance. He also put on, if you notice, he put a coat on to separate himself from, because he just had a black sweater on before, or a black shirt. It makes you pop out more with the color that he's wearing in the bottom shot. The black just keeps going. It's just like a head floating there, and you really want to pop out from the background. So lighting is key. That's why people make a living just doing that. And you know, we love working on light. I've been watching lighting for 30 years, so I pretty much know how to do it by now. I've watched a lot of really good lighters. But there are people out there that for a half day or full day rate will just do your lights for you.
Yeah, so it's a huge, huge part of it, of course, is lighting, and we've even talked to um, photographers that have been in the business for a long time, and they have even told us or people that have shot videos, you know, it's amazing what you can do with inexpensive stuff these days, but you have to light it well. So let's say you're using a phone or using something else. It's again, you can't say it enough. If you want it to look cool or look good or pop or not look like you just shot it really quickly, you got to light it well. And it's not that hard if you have the right equipment and you take the time to do it. But a lot of people just shoot something quickly, and of course, it looks like it was done quickly. So we'll go to the next slide here. Additional options when shooting, and actually just to check real fast, is there any Q&A? Any questions there?
No new ones.
Okay, so we have additional options when shooting. So just more things to think about when you're getting started. Where do you want to shoot the video? So we're just, I mean, this is all basic stuff, but it's nice to have it all down where you're really thinking about your different options. So
Yeah,
you
just
have your,
again, you only have to make the field that you're shooting look great. The whole rest of the room could look like a mess, but as long as the field you're shooting looks nice and what people are seeing looks nice, is all you have to care about.
yeah, so at your desk, obviously for vlogs or podcasts, there's video podcasts now. You could be doing a YouTube video, maybe just a quick video you want to get up about your brand on your Facebook or your social media account. So yeah, you can always shoot it at your desk. Again, just make sure you have the right lighting kit. And then inside, there's tons of different options. You could be shooting in your home. You could go to a friend's house. You could go to a business, or we know studios around town that you could go to. So you
Or even
really
a conference room.
yeah, conference room. And a lot of people are nice enough to give them or give you their space to do this. And it's easier to control lighting and sound when you're inside in a controlled environment, of course. If you just think about the difference between that and being outside, outside can be great lighting, and it's also great for a simple video camera like a phone, because you know it's a small little lens there, and having a lot of light can be great as long as it works for the shot. But it can be more difficult to control the environment. It might be harder to control the sound. It might be harder to control the lighting. You might need the perfect amount of sunlight or clouds or something blocking what you need, or you know, there's more things to think about out there. where inside you can go to the location before, scope it out, think about it, you know exactly what it's going to be, and you just adjust accordingly. And then using a backdrop can also really make a difference and add a cool look. So you might want to think about different background options or backdrop options, or do you want to use a natural background? Do you want
Yeah,
to
they have a
have
lot of different things for sale for backdrops now, from looking like a bookcase to brick walls to or a green screen if you want to actually key your image over any kind of background. That's an editing thing, and you'd have to have the editing software to do that. But you can key that green screen. You just have to. There's a whole thing about how to light that too, so it works. But getting back to lighting indoors, you have to worry about fluorescent bulbs on the ceiling if you're in a large area or in an office area, because there's a cool bulb for fluorescent and there's a warm bulb, and it's going to give you a different effect. And I believe the cool bulbs will always give a green texture to you. So the professionals actually put a rose colored lens on their cameras that counterbalance, um, and there's a blue one also that counterbalances the fluorescent bulbs so that the color's correct in the room.
and then we got a, I think a question there, if you can see that.
Still no new questions.
Okay. Thought we had one. And all right, so those are some different options, things again, just more to think about before you start. And then we have a slide here on memorization, cue cards, teleprompter. You might be thinking, okay, I have a concept here, or somebody has come to me with a creative concept that we want to shoot. How am I going to actually get through this? Let's say you're the owner. How am I actually going to speak on camera? How am I going to remember these lines? And we just want to go over quickly some different things that we've seen people do and that we've done on the shoot day. So
Yeah, for me to
memorization.
interject, you could be a lot more like Beth Sears is great at this, but you can be somewhat much more dramatic or appealing if you've memorized the stuff, because you can really put yourself into it. Also, it's nice because you just flow through the whole thing. With cue cards, that works, but if you can see that it's to the side of the camera or above the camera and over, and you can actually see that people's eyes are not even looking at the camera, they're reading. That's why a lot of times you'll see that dramatic thing where somebody's looking, they're actually answering questions off camera to somebody that's asking them, and they're not actually looking at the camera. So if you start out that way, then it just, people accept that. But if you're trying to look at the camera and then you're looking over at the cue card, people are going to see your eyes moving, because there's no way. It's got to be, especially if you're 10 or 20 feet or 15 feet away, the words have to be pretty big for you to be able to see it. Your next option is a teleprompter, which goes from, you can buy them yourself. They're around $100, $150. But what's nice is you have like either an iPad or a flat top or a laptop that you can lay down flat. There's a 45-degree angle glass that goes in front of the camera. And then as you're reading, the camera's looking through the glass, but on the glass, you can see the words, and you can adjust the speed of if a person's talking slower, they want to pause. There's another person that can actually slow the teleprompter down or speed it up depending on where you are. And that looks the most realistic. But then, and all your news people, all your anchors are reading teleprompters. You want the words to be kind of big, because if they're small, people are going to see your eyes going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth if there's a lot of long sentences and stuff that you're reading. So you want the words to be pretty big. But teleprompters are great too. It's a little harder. Again, memorizing is where you could put the most acting and the most fluidness to the whole thing, because it's just coming out of you. Teleprompter, you're still reading, but you can put a lot to that. But it's I think the teleprompter or memorizing is your two best things. Cue cards will work. It's just, I don't like people always reading off camera like that, but that's me.
And a lot of what we're trying to do on the shoot day is get people out of being stiff. So, we'll just try different things. As some people are just really natural on camera, and some people have a little bit more trouble, and that's perfectly normal, of course. So, you just try to say different things to people, like act like you're talking to your friend, act like you really want to get this story out instead of being like, oh my, I gotta say this to all these people and I'm on camera and they're gonna look at this. Like if you're thinking about the negatives, of course it's going to be harder to do anything. So just like reading on camera. So try to think about it like it's just a relaxed atmosphere. When you go see a comedian or you see any kind of performer that's really great at what they look really relaxed and they're in the moment. So you got to try to get there. It's a lot harder, of course, if you don't do this for a living and you're just showing up to do a video every once in a while. So we've seen a huge, um, wide range of different talents regarding that.
And even with the memorizing, if you're a lot of times you might be able to just do segments. So you're not trying to read a whole 30 seconds at once. You might be just capturing 5 seconds because you actually in editing, you can go to some kind of graph or some kind of photo or something else and hide the edit. And so you could just do segments of the copy for 30 or 60 seconds instead of trying to run through the whole thing and memorize the whole thing. So that's another trick too.
Mhm.
Next slide.
Okay. And this is how to make the most of your shoot day. So let's say you've already picked out what you want to do, backdrop, no backdrop, location, you got the equipment, you feel pretty good about how everything's working out so far, you got a script and everything. How are you going to make the most of the day? Because time is money, time is everything, and you probably have a lot to do, as so does everybody. So you might want to get the most out of your day. That always sounds like a good idea, right? About no matter what you're doing. So shooting is the same. Half day for us typically can be anywhere from like 2 to 5 hours. So you can accomplish a lot in that time. Now, like any project, sometimes they can just take longer than you think, right? You go, well, in a best case scenario, flow from this after 20 minutes and then this after 10 minutes. A lot of times with project work, even if you're creating something at home, it just seems like projects can take a long time, right? So you do have to budget more time than a perfect scenario, of course. But also if you come prepared, you can really get through multiple concepts. Let's say you have someone that's good at speaking on camera, they're used to it. You might as well shoot more than one thing at that time. Then you don't have to have everybody come out, because it does take a lot of effort to show up at a place and be like, okay, we're going to give a few hours to this. So you might as well get as much done in that time as you can.
Yeah,
And
like
that,
Jennifer really, she has a small bookkeeping business, but she also is a tax preparer. So we were at one location, we were able to pop off two separate different videos for her, which was great. I also wanted to bring up the point that when you're shooting on that 2 to 5 hour day, you got to remember there's time to bring all the equipment in. There's times to set up the lights. If it's multiple locations, you got to break the lights down, break the tripods down, move them to the next location, retweak everything. So it's not all just shooting sometimes, and then you have to pack everything out and go and put it back outside in the vehicle. So there's a lot of time involved with just moving equipment around and getting set up for each shot. But the point of this slide is you don't just have to do one thing. The people are there anyway. You might as well shoot two or three things, or at least have some stills of you or your spokesperson that you can use for social media at the same time. Just a still shot, because you could take the video and stills at the same time through the same camera.
Mhm. Yeah, so we do that a lot on our shoot days. Is we're taking pictures as well as video, and then you just have a lot of new content to use, and it also forces you to be creative, and that's why we like that monthly approach, or you can always get a few months worth of content at one time. So at the very least, just to go over it one more time, at the very least to be ready, I would suggest making sure the script is finalized. Of course, you can make changes on the day, but you want something that you feel good about, the owner or whoever's part of the business feels good about, the team that's helping you, or of course, if it's just you, you want to feel good about the script. And then the people speaking on camera should be given it ahead of time. And so you try not to do everything last minute. You definitely want to have time to really internalize what you want to say. and also memorize as much as you can. As we said before in a previous slide, that's going to have the best natural flow to it.
But
And then also checking out the location before the shoot day. So let's say you're going to a studio, or you're going to somebody's house, or you have somewhere to go to shoot this. You want to always go look at it before, so you can start thinking about, okay, this shot's going to look nice. This is going to probably work. You want to do at least a walkthrough where you're going to shoot it.
yeah, and to know where the electric plugs are and everything else, and whether they're all in the same circuit, or because you don't want to flip off lights because you have too much stuff plugged into one outlet.
Okay.
But if you want to move on to the next slide, Ray.
Yeah. So now we have a slide on Spokesperson. We've talked about it briefly so far, and we think this is a huge, well, it's a really valuable focus for people. It's just another way to be like, okay, and the first bullet point there is because I think a lot of people are thinking this. I love the idea of doing videos. Why not do videos for my brand? It probably would help. It probably would get a lot of views if we did a good job on one. But I don't want to be on camera, or not everyone likes being on camera. That's a huge thing. The fear thing, I think, stops a lot of people from doing videos. Of course, the time commitment. But I think a lot of it is, I don't know if I really want to be on camera. It's easier if I don't. So I'm just not going to do it. So I think, so we just wanted to make sure that, you know, I think that's the situation a lot of the time. And we want people to get over that, either to help them through it. But a great way to help you through it is when you don't have to carry the whole thing. So that's where a spokesperson comes into play. So charismatic, or people that are funny on camera, immediately get a viewer's attention. So a huge part of a good social media video is you got to catch their attention in 5 seconds or less, so they don't click away or stop caring or move on to something else. So you do need, I think the easiest way to do that is to have someone that's engaging on camera right away. It's either close up or some way that they're getting your attention and you actually want to see what they're going to say next. And then the different options we've used spokespersons for, this is just a few. Obviously, you know, you can do pretty much anything that a video can do, but they could act as an employee. So maybe they're talking with the owner as an employee, or they're helping the owner through the video by being the interviewer. So let's say they're interviewing the owner questions and then they're answering them. So it's almost like they're setting you up to succeed, and you don't have to carry the whole thing. Or they're taking the lead on the ad. Let's say the owner's still there, or somebody from the company's still there, but the spokesperson's on the beginning and the end. They're still making you care about the video, but you're still getting to your branding. You're still getting to the things you care about. Now, of course, if you have a good spokesperson, they would feel part of your company, or they would care about your brand just as much as you do. So you wouldn't feel like you know you have to do. It's like they're on another team and you're on a separate one. You want to be on the same team, but there's so many different options there for a spokesperson.
Next slide.
Okay, and then we have video length. I think a lot of people think, okay, now what do I do for the length of the video? So we're covering the topic today, I believe, was on social media videos, but we also wanted to just interject a website too. Might as well think about both at the same time. So people look at the length of the video when they push play. I think that's really important to think about. It goes back to what I said about the first 5 seconds being really important. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, I'm sure you do it too. When you push a video on the internet, you're going, do I want to watch this? Is this worth my time? You're thinking all that in like a split second, right? You're going, how long is this? Does this make me, is this going to entertain me enough, or should I do something else? So remember, other people are doing that too. So less is typically more in terms of length. Not always is the case though. So there are different approaches that can call for a longer video length. Let's say you want to introduce your company, like I said earlier, and it's going to live on your website for a while. Let's say it could be up there for multiple years or at least a year. And you really want a nice video that's you introducing your company. You might want to talk longer than just like a 45-second thing, because you want to cover multiple things. And if you're cutting to different things with editing, you can really show all, you know, a lot of things that your company is about and excite people in different ways. And it's just a different approach. So it's not like every video has to be under a minute. You know, you might hear everything's got to be under 130 or everything's got to be under 3 minutes. Of course, it depends on what you're trying to do, but less is typically more in terms of if they're entertained and they see that it's under a minute, they're probably a little bit or a lot more likely to stay with your whole ad.
It's got
So
to be engaging. If it's not going to be engaging, it doesn't matter how long it is. You can have a 3 or 4 minute thing as long as it's like you've seen movie trailers that you can't look away. You want to watch it. It's exciting. So you need to be engaging on that. Also, you have to remember that all video today is multi-purposed. So if you're on the internet or in your website, it doesn't really matter how long it is, but you got to keep in the back of your mind, if you also want to use the same video on television, you're stuck to 5, 10 second, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and actually they do have 120 seconds. A lot of those are for infomercials where, you know, they're trying to sell the Popeil pocket fisherman or something. But you gotta, when you're shooting it and editing it, you have to realize that those have to be exact, because they'll cut if it's too short or it's too long. It just doesn't work for television or for cable. So you've got to have those. But other than that, it can be 29 seconds, 27 seconds. It could be 45 seconds, because it's different. There's also you can there, all the TV stations and a lot of the radio stations have what's called pre-rolls to their news stories that you can also have I wouldn't put any more than a 15-second pre-roll, but when you're watching the news story, and you've probably been on TV websites, you'll see an add-on, or even for YouTube, you'll see an ad before you're actually looking at stuff. So again, make it entertaining, because we are actually in the entertainment business. If we're not entertaining people, they're not going to look at your business. They're not going to look at what you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm. And just to interject a little bit with what we've worked on in the past and what I've really enjoyed doing, what I like about social media is, and now sometimes we're doing a dual approach. So we know this might go on TV, this will go on social media. So you might need to think about that. So I want to have a 30-second version that works. So let's make sure this concept will work for 30 seconds, but we can always let it um, breathe a little bit if we're going to have it on social media. What I like about it is either you're just doing social media or it's one of the things you're making the video for. With social media, it just feels like more of a story, you know, because let's say you're making it 40 seconds, 45, 55, a minute, 10. You have more of a story. Again, as long as it's engaging, you don't feel that same restraint when you watch a TV commercial. You know it's going to be in your face the same amount of time, and it's going to be over, where it feels more like a story. And people like, of course, watching stories, so you have a little play there. But what we like to do is have the best of both worlds. You have a little story, but you still keep it punchy, which is what TV ads really do well. So I think keeping both those in mind are great. Of course, it depends on the concept and what you're trying to get across. And then I think we have a question. Dan, you might have to
Oh,
scroll down on it.
I didn't realize there's a slide bar in this thing.
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
couple questions.
Jacqueline Scott from Nelson, PowerPoint is on. Ray needs to turn on his video. I guess your video's off, Ray.
Okay.
Dennis said, for Facebook, what is the optimal video length?
For Facebook? So that would be social media. It's just a social media video. So again, it's basically what we've been saying, where it really depends on what you're trying to do. I would typically try to stay under a minute or right around the minute, because again, when people are watching the video at first, they're more likely to stay with the whole thing the shorter it is. But you still want to have enough time to tell a little bit of a story and make it fun for people. So I mean, you could do a 20-second video, you could do a 50-second video. We say typically try to have the mindset of keeping it under a minute, but if you go up to a minute 20 and it's a good video and it's bouncing around to different things, that's great too.
Yeah, and if you're shooting, you might as well think about, instead of just doing one video and running the heck out of it, is just shoot a couple or 3 or 4 or 5 quick ones, again, to get the company name out and stuff like that. So that's another option for you to think about too. There's another question in the Rochester from Dennis. In the Rochester area, what is the list of the top social media channels? I think right now the hottest things, Ray, you can answer that because you're part of the younger group here, but I believe it's Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, I think are some of the hottest ones that are going right now, plus Twitter.
Oh yeah, so of course there's always different apps or things that people are using more of. So you might hear young people don't care about Facebook anymore, or they don't care about Instagram, or you hear that stuff all the time. Um, what you also got to think about is what's going to help your brand. So Facebook and Instagram is just really good for the paid ad approach. We haven't seen anything that indicates that we should be using other apps to do that. That doesn't mean you can't use other apps. It doesn't mean you can't do a YouTube ad or different ones, but what we've seen is you get so much value out of Facebook, Instagram approach. And a lot of people are checking their Facebook and Instagram accounts at least once a day. And I think with the crazy year that we've been having, you're even more likely to check your social media accounts. So you got to think, where are the people, right? I mean, people are using a lot of different apps. So you could just have stuff for every app and always be updating people on your company on every app. But if you're doing paid approaches, which I think is the most likely to get in front of people, Facebook is great at it. They have a great paid ads setup. They have so many different options to get in front of people. You don't have to spend a ton of money. What you do need is engaging content. If you have the goods, I always say, if you have the goods, then you can use these apps and use these avenues to help you. But first, you got to get something that's good. All
So
right,
next slide.
Let's work on this. Any other questions?
No new questions.
Okay, just a second here.
You still don't have your picture, Ray.
Yeah, just fixing that. Should come up here. Okay, I might have to fix that in a few minutes here after we get the slides here. We're just going to go through the slides here. Okay, so next one is it's not over when you capture the footage, as we've alluded to before. Editing is very important, of course. Of course, it depends on, again, what concept you're doing. So let's say you have a simple concept. A lot of things we shoot is one person talking on camera or maybe a couple people. All of a sudden you add some pictures to it, the video you're doing, and some B-roll footage, which is running video. Maybe there's no sound or you're only playing music in the background during that B-roll footage, but you're cutting to it while someone else is speaking. It's just different ways you can make the ad more engaging. So we just want to list out a few ways that ads can become more powerful using music, open and closing graphics, transitions from one shot to the next are just some of the ways that a video can influence the audience and notice and care about your brand. And that's why people take the time to make something nice. That's why people take the time, even on stuff like TV shows or movies, right? They take the time to make it nice and to make it have impact. Because if
So we got the bottom picture there is Steve at Skips. I don't know if you've ever been to Skips Meat Market out in Fairport. First of all, Steve's an incredibly great guy, and he really the marinades. He's got probably 75 marinades there, all kinds of spices, and he really knows as a butcher his business, and he's great at it. But we also video wise, again, video, because of the algorithms with Google searches and stuff, the more videos you have, the better it helps you with your searches through Google, because it's just all part of it now. That and keeping fresh. You don't want to have the same video on your website for 2 years. The more you change it, the more Google likes that, because it's something new coming up all the time for people. That's why a lot of people put blogs on their websites also, so there's always fresh talent. Well, what Steve did here on the lower picture is it's called Steve's Skillet, or actually Skip Skillet, because Steve's the owner, and he's actually walking through this whole thing about how to make a roast, it's really a cool thing, because that's what he does for a living. And then he's also doing these other things that you want to watch, because he's showing you, especially with red osier seasoning and stuff like that, about how to really make a great roast. And it's a lot of fun to shoot these. It's great to edit them. Again, you can put a lot of graphics in it while you're going through it. So it's just a lot of fun to do that. So editing wise, once you get the footage down, you can, yes, you can hold your phone up and shoot a whole 30 seconds and just stop, and it's just one shot. Or you can edit together maybe 4 or 5 shots, edit together shots with also graphics, or photos, because you can move on photos also to make it look exciting. And then also you might want to have a really nice ending. What we were taught in college is your name is the most important part of your business, so it should outshine everything else on your spot, at the ending and stuff. So that's why a lot of people have 2 and 3D graphics at the end with a really exciting look on their logo, because it's just it's really really important to punch that name out there. I don't think there's any more questions, Ray, so you can move on to the next slide.
Okay. And then this is just another good thing to keep in mind, of course, when you are posting, to encourage likes and shares. We always say if you don't ask for it, it's harder to get it. Of course, if you have the better, what we've seen also is, again, the better content you have, the more engaging it is, the more likely people are gonna, your numbers are gonna improve on social media. And then also you're gonna get more likes, more shares, because it's something people wanna be a part of, right? Or they wanna look at, or they don't mind seeing your ads on Facebook because, wow, they look pretty good, or these are fun graphics to watch. I wonder what they're gonna do next, right? So you gotta constantly think you're trying to entertain people. If you
Yeah, you have
want
to
them to
understand with
interact, brand.
Facebook, you can only have like 4 or 5 words on your actual graphic, because if you have too many words, their algorithms actually will lower the amount of people that it's actually shared with. And you can go from an okay ad that's going to go out to a lot of people to, there's 4 different levels. And the last one, probably not very many people are going to see it because it's just too many words on the graphic. Now, again, when you're posting it, you could put all the words in the world above it, that's what you'll see in a post, is people explaining it. The graphic itself should be just something that pulls you in as a hook, that makes you want to read above it the information that could have the store hours or the special, or it's 30% off this week, or all those other things. So you just got to remember, keep the graphic as a hook, and keep it simple, and then you can add the all the type and stuff above it when you're posting. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Ray?
No, I think that's good.
So
So
if you don't ask people to like and share, then it's like they won't do it. So that's why so many people will ask you to do that, especially if you're trying to get people to like your website. You really have to ask them to do that.
And here, we just wanted to show an example of a video that we've done in the last year, and also just keeping in mind, you might have some questions, or you're thinking about doing videos, and we just want to, again, carry that point to the end here, that videos should be part of your mix almost all the time, I feel like, because they're always, it's an engaging visual for your company, right? And it's going to really make your brand stand out, and we want your brand to jump out at people, and you want more people to know about you. So here we go. I'm just going to play this video. Now, we did want to just have a little disclaimer here. Doing this through PowerPoint, sometimes the video can look a little laggy or a little slow, but it just gives you an idea of what it can look like.
Do you even like your mattress? How long have you had it anyways? 5, 10, 15 years? It's time to kick it to the curb. Hi, I'm Bree, and I have a great deal on a queen mattress, 3 for $333.
We also have 777.
How about a double-sided queen mattress, box spring and frame, all for $333?
With this deal, you get a queen, pillow top, plush, firm, mattress, box spring, frame, delivery, pillows, all for 777.
Both super deals this month only, but don't sleep on it.
But you can. They're mattresses.
Stop on in. Sleep Cheap, West Henrietta Road. Stop into Sleep Cheap today on West Henrietta Road, right across from the new Delta Sonic.
So that's just, and what we like about showing that one is that there's different things that we went through to get those different shots. So the first 5 seconds or so of that ad was a close-up of the spokesperson. I always believe in that as one of the great ways to get your attention, because you're like, they're right in your face. You hopefully you like hearing what the person has to say on camera, and you're kind of curious what the rest of the ad's going to be like. You don't want to start, of course, with a boring start or a boring beginning. So hopefully that catches people's attention, and then having those close-ups or different options. Again, that was all shot very inexpensive, very simple equipment, but the look, it looks like a TV ad. It looks like a nice ad to get your brand out there. And of course, it depends on the brand, right? Like what kind of quality look they want. Do they want to be more funny? Are they more of a silly kind of concept to get anyone in the door? Are they really trying to get high-end business? Of course, it depends on what look and what you're trying to do. But for Sleep Cheap, that's very effective.
Okay, we got another question, Ray, from Beth Sears. You may want to mention how you interject photos about the topic I was speaking on, and it added to the videos you shot and edited for me. So what's cool about photos is you can do what's called a Ken Burns effect, where you're actually zooming slowly in on the photo or moving out on the photo or moving across the photo. And you can actually give a regular still photo life through a video. But it also is nice, like I said before, you can hide it, edit between two takes of your voice talent by hiding that edit underneath some kind of visual that you can put up there. Also, Bree Morris mentioned the fact she loves the commercial. I wonder why. And so, do we have any other questions
so
coming in? I think
just to
we're
go
almost
over a
to
little
the
bit
end,
more
right?
with Beth, we did a video for her, and we did cut to we had pictures coming up on the screen, things moving in and out, and we're always trying to think of ways that you can engage an audience and make it more exciting than just one person talking on camera.
It also puts, if she's talking about certain types of things, it puts an extra oomph onto that when you see, a title that comes up for the thing that she's actually talking about at that time. It just gives you a better impact through your speech, and also adds a little bit more eye candy to instead of just seeing a person talking.
And then also we just wanted to take time to remind everyone again, always think creatively is really our motto and what we believe in, and videos are a big part of that. We think it's, if not one of the best ways to do that for your brand, is to be creative, cut through, we always say, cut through the advertising clutter, get yourself noticed. Videos immediately can grab your attention. So that's a great thing. And the other good thing is, I think a lot of people said back in the day, well, yeah, that's great, but TV is expensive. I don't want to do that. And again, there's so many different options to get your videos out there. You can put it on your website. You can put it on social media. You don't have to spend a lot of money to do Facebook ads. As long as you have good content, you can get a ton of views. So there are just so many different options out there for you. Just because the place you're watching the video has changed doesn't mean they're not as important. Of course, they're really important today. And as long as you're really spending the time to do it well, I think it would be great for you. And it looks like we got some questions here. You wanna...
Let me see. Beth Sears says, I purchased newer 660 lights and do not like them. I just do not know how to use them. I think we have 660 lights too, don't we, Ray?
Yeah, so
I think they do come with a manual, but I'm sure there's YouTube videos on everything today. How to change your brakes, how to put a deck in your backyard. I'm sure there's probably, if you look on YouTube, there will be something to how best to use 660 lights. And a lot of times the actual company will also put a YouTube up as far as that also. So I would just look online and see if there's something. If not, Ray and I offline here, we could just help you a little bit with it.
yeah, there's local places that can help you too. And again, it depends on, are you trying to light the face of the person on camera or the full body, like what kind of lights you need. But I think almost anybody would love having an LED light where you can change the temperature and the brightness. And as long as you can get it working, and they're usually really easy to use, you can do a lot of different things with them. So
Yeah,
they're
it
really
goes, you can actually change it from white light to a nice gold light. In the old days, the HMIs and stuff, the movie lights and stuff that you had to use and rent were pretty expensive, and you had to use what's called gels, or just clear, different colored pieces of plastic that you would put over the light to give it a blue tint or a gold tint or a red tint and stuff like that. So today, the LED lights are great. They're automatically eliminate a lot of the shadowing because it's a very wide light. So instead of having a hard shadow on things, it kind of softens it. They're very, very popular with a lot of people right now. And I don't know, is there any other, there might be one more question.
okay.
Oh,
So-
Beth is thanking us. But thanks to Nelson, thanks to the Brighton Chamber. We actually did come out around an hour, which is pretty cool. And I think that, again, if anybody has any questions, we're more than happy to answer them offline for you. We really enjoy doing these things because it challenges our creativity every day and trying to really help businesses grow. And we've been just having a lot of fun with it. So
and
thank you
another
very
thing to
much
think
for your
about.
time.
Oh yeah, sure. I just want to add, interject one more thing here is a closing point or closing argument on why video is important too. Is if you have somebody helping you, of course you can do it yourself. But one way to look at it is, if you have somebody or a team helping you, at least pointing you in the right direction. The nice thing is they're forcing you to think about being creative. They're being creative. They have to be. Everyone's working together. I think what a lot of people do with social media is they go, okay, we know we need to do a post. Let's record some employee saying something about our company, or let's get something out there, right? But they're not always taking the time to really have people that are just thinking, what is the average person going to care about? What is going to move people? What's going to get them to do something? So just as long as you're always thinking about those things, and it's easier when you have other people that are pushing you, because if you're a business owner, you got only so much time in the day to think about stuff, right? So it's hard to be like, okay, how am I going to be the most creative advertising version of myself while running my company, while doing everything else? So I think it always helps to have somebody pushing you to be creative.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. And thanks for tuning in. And again, this should be, Nelson will be putting this up on the, I think the Brighton website. So if you have other business owners, you know, that that could benefit from knowing some of this knowledge, feel free to invite them into it. I don't know if Nelson has a password you have to get in there or not, but they will be posted, and we're going to do continuing to do more seminars. I think Beth has another one coming up next. So again, thank you for your listening today, and we hope that maybe we open some new ways of thinking about doing your videos. So thank you.
Thank you very much.